Good morning. Spring is tomorrow, I'm told. Thank you all for coming here today. It's good to see a great turnout for this event. I want to welcome Don Ness, Mayor of the City of Duluth, and Dan Olson, International Laborers of the United States, and the many people that have taken the time to come here today, both supporting and perhaps not. We in Superior, and I'm going to ask Don Ness to speak first, if you will, are happy to have the Enbridge Company as a very, very strong, but also very important citizen and partner and friend in our community. And I'll talk a little more about that later. But first I want to introduce and welcome my friend from Duluth, the younger mayor of the Twin Ports. And I keep telling him he should be governor, but he won't listen to me. So anyway, welcome Don Ness.
Well, thank you. I'm going to keep my comments relatively short. This is, we know that this is a controversial issue in our community and across the region, and yet when you look at the debate here at a local level in supporting Enbridge, which is a great local employer, and you look at the options that we have to move domestic oil and domestic crude across from Canada or from North Dakota, and we're either going to move that by rail, by truck, or by pipeline. The debate on whether or not that crude should be coming out of the ground, that's not, in my mind, a debate that we're weighing in on. That is a decision that is made at a much higher level than at a local level. But when we look at the options on how to move that crude, pipeline, in my mind, it is the safest alternative, as well as requires the least amount of carbon to move the volume of crude across the country. We've also seen the impact because of the lack of pipeline capacity from North Dakota. We're seeing the impacts on the local infrastructure. The road infrastructure in North Dakota, with all these trucks carrying this crude, has been devastated, and a lot of local investment is needed to invest in that. We're also seeing the impact in our port, because there's so much of the freight, rail freight, is being used to transport oil, that it becomes much more difficult for us to get grains from the Dakotas to our port and to ship it out from there. So, and looking at those options and understanding that at a local level, both in Duluth and Superior, the employees of Enbridge, they are dedicated to making sure that these pipelines operate as safely and as efficiently as possible. They are the ones focused on the operations and making sure that it can be done safely. They're the ones that are doing the environmental and the civil engineering that's so critical in making sure that these pipelines operate effectively. So from the Twin Ports perspective, in my mind, we're saying that pipelines are the best option to move oil across our country and to support that industry, as well as saying that supporting those local employees that are dedicated to the task of making sure that it's done responsibly and safely.
Thank you, Mayor. From a little different perspective, on the larger scale as well as not, I think it was Tip O'Neill said all politics is local. And I like that because I believe that as go the cities of America, as go the cities of Minnesota and Wisconsin, so goes the state of Wisconsin, state of Minnesota, and the nation. Politics is local, but the results are encompassing nationally and oftentimes internationally. We are fortunate here, not just in Superior, but the Twin Ports, to be and are one of the largest ports in the nation as far as tonnage is concerned. Here we're the 13th largest or 15th largest, I'm not sure, but we've also had the pleasure, the opportunity to be a transportation hub for a lot of reasons, a lot of purposes. We're a large trucking hub. rail hub, pipeline, and of course port. That is who we are. That is what we are, and that's what sustains not just the communities of Duluth and Superior, but the effort that we provide here is transported in one way or another, both nationally and internationally. And I as a boy, I guess I'm maybe not such a boy, but maybe I was a teenager, but it was Lakehead Pipeline, and I remember many of my neighbors' fathers and mothers worked for Lakehead Pipeline back in the 50s, and some of those folks are still here today and are friends. And as I grew, so did the company into Enbridge, and they employ like 750, 800 people in our direct Twin Ports area. They also have a payroll in the area for which we're talking of about $62 million, if I recall correctly. But more than that, they offer a recognition as a very solid, good corporate citizen for the Twin Ports and, let's say, the nation and our friends in Canada. We are, I often say, and I'd like to see the sign outside the city of Superior saying, Superior, Wisconsin's energy capital. And we are. 15% of all the imported oil passes through Superior, Wisconsin. 15% that comes into America that serves industry, business, and homes, utilities, and so forth across the nation. I think that's an honor. I think it's a privilege. I think it's a successful relationship that we've been able to have in the Twin Ports with many of our quality and high-level citizens that are both nationally recognized as well as international. So I want to thank Enbridge for the partnership we've had in this community and through the Twin Ports. I want to thank Enbridge for the quality of services you provide, not just for us and the people we employ, but the services and relationship and product delivery that turns into energy across America. I also want to thank you for the investments that you're making in our communities and the future growth that's going to happen in jobs. And I'll say, politicians don't get by without saying, and taxes to the community and the state and the states of Minnesota and Wisconsin. So I want to thank you very much. I'd like to call on Don. Why do I keep calling him Don? Don's over there. Dan Olson, international representative of the International Laborers Association.
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for showing up. We have, for over 60 years, had a partnership with Enbridge. I am a construction craft laborer. I've been in the labor's unit for 38 years. I've worked on your lines from Canada down to Dundee, Illinois, and with a lot of work being right here in Superior at the terminal. Over the years, we've provided employment for thousands of construction workers, whether it's in the pipeline industry itself or the upgrades that you're making to the terminals, any of the distribution lines that are coming in and out, so that we do a vast number of things. I've had the privilege this morning to bring over 25 or more students that we have in class right now in Duluth that are taking an OSHA 30 class, which is required by Enbridge Energy. So what organized labor is doing is making sure we're at the forefront of the safety of all these things. We know you have the architects, we know you have the engineers. We want to provide the labor, so when we're doing this work, that we do have the safest, most experienced construction craft people on those jobs. There are 4 trades that cover the pipelines. It's the laborers, the operators, the teamsters, and the pipe fitters. And every one of those units are working every day to make sure that we give you the people, the proper skilled people to work on your pipelines, to ensure that anybody that's sitting out here in either of our communities in the Arrowhead region or from wherever your lines run. I represent North Dakota as well, so I thank you for the partnership that we've had with you. I want to thank the 2 mayors for calling this press conference and the partnerships that we have between Duluth and Superior. This is, like Mayor Hagan said, it's our port. I've lived here all my life. You have too, basically, Don. You as well. So we have investments ourselves in our communities, and this is a great way of showing it, and most importantly, the partnerships that we all share. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Dan is also a very prominent, strong member of the City Council, past president, and he does a whole lot for the community in many regards. We also have with us Lee Monty. Boy, I got that right. From Lakehead Pipeline. He's here to, if you wish to answer any questions that you may have of the pipeline company itself, Enbridge, and certainly the mayor and I, Dan and others would probably be able to respond to any questions you might have. If not, we know who may have the exact answers. So do you want to come up, Lee, or just if there's any questions?
Sure. Well, thank you, and we really do appreciate the really kind words that you, both Mayor Neff and Mayor Hagan has offered us. It's quite humbling, quite frankly. Enbridge, as you said, has been a partner in the community here, as well as communities along the pipeline route for over 65 years. So we have roots in this community that go back decades. It's very important to us. It's very important to us to have the support of our community leaders as we go forward and invest literally billions of dollars in bringing crude supplies into the U.S. to help us balance and bring an energy-independent North America. So this is really critical. But it's also important for our employees. As Mayor Hagan said, we have about 750 employees, in addition to a lot of workers that support our work at the terminal, who typically are employed by contractors. So it's a huge workforce, and being a part of the community, being supported by the community is of critical importance, not only to us, but to our families who live and grow in this community. It's absolutely important, and it's imperative that we continue to be a good corporate neighbor, and we will work hard not to disappoint either mayors in regards to some of the great comments. So going forward, we have a lot of work to do with the infrastructure. There's a lot of challenges ahead. While we're very proud of our record in terms of delivering, we also are very much aware that the bar is raised and we have to do it at a higher level. And the expectation that we do a much better job, despite how well we've done in the past, is resonating with our company, and we're investing not only in new pipelines but new technologies to make this even more reliable and safer. So we look forward to sharing that with all of you as well. So thank you very much.
I see no. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Jen Schultz. I just have a question for Lee about the difference between transporting crude oil through the tar sands compared to traditional oil that's been transported in the pipeline. Can you elaborate on the differences and the potential risks of transporting crude oil?
Yeah, I certainly can. There really are no differences. Crude oil is crude oil. When you say oil sands or tar sands, it has the implication that there's a sand component. There really isn't. That's removed in the process. So there isn't any more sand or any less sand than the conventional crude. So there are no differences with respect to transporting. Now, there are different densities of crude oil that require different horsepower in terms of our pumps to pump it. But in terms of whether it's more corrosive, it's not. Whether it erodes the pipeline more or less than other crudes, it does not.
Yes, sir. Back. Okay. Yes.
Sorry. Alan Richardson from Duluth. I have a question for Mayor Ness. I consider it a failure of political courage to say that you're not going to take an opinion over the controversy about CO2 emissions from tar sands oil simply because it's not, those decisions are made at a higher level of political office than what you hold. Are you saying that you have no opinion on climate change, vis-a-vis tar sands, or the devastation to clean water supplies resulting from fracked oil? I feel like I demand better from my elected officials, so if you could comment.
Sure. I guess my point here and what we're talking about is that seeing the reality that there is oil being pumped out whether it be in Canada or in North Dakota, and the question is how to transport that oil. And you know, from my perspective, when you look at the options and what is the safest option and the option that requires the least amount of energy to move across the country, I think the pipeline is the best option. And so, you know, there's all sorts of many layers of issues that we could get into and debate, you know, with no end. But you know, what we're talking about today, at least from the reason I'm here today, is to talk about what are the options for transportation. And I support the pipeline as I believe the best option to move oil across the country.
If I could real briefly, I'd like to remind the folks that the reason we had this press conference today was to share the exciting news that the cities of Duluth and Superior and the Twin Ports area as a whole are engaging the partnership that we have with Enbridge Energy, and any of the political questions that maybe want to be fielded here today should probably be directed at a different time. This is a celebration for us, celebration for both communities, celebration for, and I'll be selfish, for my labor organizations that are also partners in this. And the safety that everybody has reached out, whether it's the owners of the pipeline itself, the owners of the pipe, the landowners, the communities, and everything else that's with it. That's what we're here for. That's a message that we'd like to share with you folks today. So if there isn't any other questions regarding that.
There are. We were just told that there was an Enbridge representative here to field questions. So I'd like the citizens to have the opportunity to do that if they so choose, and it seems like there are more questions. I'd also like to speak directly to the question about whether or not pipelines are actually safer than train. And there's a lot of debate going on about that right now. And actually, when you look at the amount of oil that has been spilled with pipelines, it's more dangerous to use pipelines. And the safety that they're working on with trains is greatly improving. They're removing trains that are no longer safe. And I think that that's an issue that needs to be brought up. And so to celebrate right now just seems inappropriate because we're actually really concerned.
Okay, before I direct that to you, what I would like to comment on is there are public hearings being going on this
We've
week.
participated in those as well.
Okay.
This is an opportunity to speak with our mayor.
I think that's a better place to field those questions. There's one in Floodwood tomorrow. There's one in Duluth tomorrow night.
We will be in attendance.
Thank you. Sir?
Yeah, I'm concerned that there's a risk with tar sands oil and that this liability could be a major problem for our community, a major concern. We are very worried that the cleanup will be so much more expensive with tar sands oil, that it's a heavier oil, that it doesn't stay on the top of the water, so any spilling around the lake could cost hundreds of times more to clean up.
Well, we do a lot of planning, contingency planning to address any potential spills that could occur on any of our pipelines. That's part of what we do when we plan the pipeline, is also and try to anticipate anything that could go wrong and have resources in place if required. And so we've done that on all of our new developments, and we'll continue to do that. With respect to every crude and every situation has unique challenges with respect to how you would address an emergencies. So there's not one formula that addresses all pipelines or all crude types. It's very specific to the location, and that's all part of our planning and how we resource these pipelines once they get into operations. So we very much recognize the risk, and we feel like we've stepped up to address those risks with the necessary resources in the unlikely event that there is a spill.
I'd like to say that it's not unlikely. Enbridge reports that their spill rate is 99.9997. That 0.00003% that spills equates to 110 gallons per day based on what they've proposed for the Sandpiper pipeline.
The questions that you're raising here are technical for regulatory review with regard to the hearings that are being held across Minnesota. So I want to thank everyone for being here and hold your questions for the hearings that are forthcoming. Thank you.
Do you want to talk at all about it, Don?
Yeah, I know.